Hi, we're out on our range today, and once again we're talking about shotguns for personal protection, home defense, or deer hunting. And I do mean specifically deer hunting. We're not talking about small game or birds. When you use a shotgun in any of those roles, it could be loaded with many things. But what we're talking about today specifically is buckshot. Even more specifically, we're talking about number 1 buckshot. Even more specifically, we're talking about how does number 1 stack up against double-aught. Okay. What I'm going to do today is first talk for a few minutes. Secondly, we'll do a pattern demonstration. Then we'll do some chronograph analysis. Then we'll do another pattern demonstration, and then we'll shoot our meat target. But if you want to skip through a lot of preliminary stuff, I invite you to fast forward to the part where you see me standing next to the chart with the numbers on it. Okay, for those who are still here, when using a shotgun loaded with buckshot, for personal protection, home defense, or deer hunting, it can, for some people in some circumstances, have an advantage over a rifle or a handgun. The main advantage comes from the pattern you get from your buckshot. If you're trying to shoot at something that's running, having a pattern can increase your hit probability. Also, if you're in the dark and you can't really get a good sight picture, again, having a pattern may give you more hit probability than just shooting one solid projectile from a rifle or a pistol. But there are limitations to that. Let me show you what I mean. So I've set up a splatter shot target, and I have my Mossberg Model 500 with its 20.5-inch improved cylinder bore barrel loaded with Remington 12-gauge 2 3/4-inch double-aught buck 9 pellet. I'll shoot this target from 5 yards, and let's see what kind of pattern we get. Okay, this is where the wad hit, but as far as our 9 pellets, you can see that the spread is minimal. So in a home defense type situation, someone has a shotgun and they'll say something like, in the dark, they know they can hit anything, they just point it in the general direction. At home defense distances, that's just not the case. You have to have a greater distance before that pattern entropy helps you out. But now I'll put up a new splatter shot target and I'll shoot it from 30 yards, and let's see what kind of results we get. So from 30 yards with our double-aught buck 9 pellet, there's 4 impacts on our splatter shot and then 3 more on the silhouette, 1, 2, and 3. So we can see that our pattern has spread out quite a bit. Now I'll paste up these shot holes, shoot another shot from 30 yards with our double-aught buck 9 pellet, and see if we can confirm these results. So with our first shot, we had 4 on the splatter shot target and then 3 more on the rest of the target. With our second shot, we have 4 on the splatter shot target and then 4 on the rest of the target. So really consistent results. And we can see that as that shot spreads out as it goes down range, at this distance, it can enhance your hit probability. If I'd been off a little bit, I still would have had a few hits on the target. However, as you get farther away and your pattern entropy becomes greater and greater, it can start to work against you. Let me put up a new target and I'll shoot with our double-aught buck from 40 yards. Now I have 3 impacts on our splatter shot and 1 on the rest of the target. So now I'll paste up these shot holes, shoot another shot from 40 yards, and confirm these results. Now with our second shot from 40 yards, we have 3 impacts on the splatter shot and 4 on the rest of the silhouette. So that's not bad for an improved cylinder bore barrel with double-aught buck from 40 yards. But it's also a little inconsistent with the first shot. And we can see that if we were to go back 50 or 60 yards, our pattern would be getting very big. And we're going to have to start concerning ourselves with collateral damage with a lot of pellets that aren't really on the target. And we're going to really start losing effectiveness with fewer pellets on the target. So if you were to shoot a shotgun with buckshot from long distances like 40, 50, 60 yards, what could you do to keep more pellets on the intended target while still having a big enough pattern that it's enhancing your hit probability? Well, there's a lot of things you can do, but primarily 2. And yes, I know I've discussed this before. One thing you can do is get a different shotgun with a longer barrel and a full choke. Okay, but since we're not just talking about hunting, we're talking about personal protection and home defense, that might not be the most practical thing. Another thing you can do is use different shotgun ammunition that has a higher pellet count. Now I'll put up a new target and let me show you something different. Now I'm going to shoot from 40 yards with the same Mossberg 500 shotgun, but now I'm loaded with Remington 12 gauge 3-inch double-aught buck 15 pellet. Now we've demonstrated on previous occasions that when you go from the 2 3/4 inch double-aught to the 3-inch double-aught, you lose a significant amount of velocity. We're giving away a significant amount of power to increase our pellet count by 6. So we would expect that our pattern at that distance will be the same size, just with more pellets in the pattern. It'll be a denser pattern and we should have more impacts on target. That's what we would expect. Let's see if that's what we get. So shooting from 40 yards with our double-aught buck 15 pellet, I only have 2 impacts on our splatter shot target and then 3 on the rest of the target. So even though we have significantly increased our pellet count, that's fewer impacts on the target. Let me paste up these shot holes, shoot another shot, and see if we can confirm these results. And with our second shot of 3-inch Magnum 15 pellet, we have 2 hits in our splatter shot target and then 2 in the rest of the silhouette. 3 if you include this one up here that's barely touching the head. So, between the 2 shots, pretty consistent results. But what does all this mean? Okay, everyone, I know that demonstration was both tedious and redundant, but there were a couple of points to be made. Now, I did not go through the redundant, tedious process of demonstrating that with the 3-inch 15 pellet, you get significantly lower velocity than you do with the 2 3/4 inch 9 pellet. But you are giving away a significant amount of power to get that greater pellet count. Now, the idea of the greater pellet count is that at any given distance, the patterns of the 2 ammunitions will be about the same size, but with more pellets in that area, you get a denser pattern, more pellets on target, or at longer distance, better hit probability. But what we saw today was that is not the case. The pattern isn't any denser, it's just bigger. I in fact got fewer pellets on target. I also have to point out that that is not specific to my Mossberg shotgun and Remington shotgun ammunition. On other occasions, with different brands of ammunition and different shotguns, I've gotten the same result. So, going from 2 3/4 inch double-aught 9 pellet to 3-inch double-aught 15 pellet isn't helping you out much. Now that brings us to our 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch number 1 buck 16 pellet. There's a few questions to be asked here. In fact, 3 of them that I want to cover today. Now 1 we'll go into later, but for right now, 2 questions. Number 1 is double-aught buck 9 pellet versus number 1 buck 16 pellet. Number 1 pellets are smaller, but how do those 2 compare in terms of weight of total charge, and how much velocity are we going to lose, if any, going to the number 1 buck? Okay, I cut apart a couple of shells, weighed the projectiles, and of course they'll vary from one projectile to the next, but with double-aught pellets, they weigh about 52.5 grains each. With the number 1 pellets, which are 30 caliber instead of the double-aught being 33 caliber, those weigh about 35.5 grains each. So you do the math, and if I did the math right, what that comes up to is, with our double-aught buck 9 pellet, our total weight is just over an ounce. With the number 1 buck 16 pellet, our total weight is just over 1.25 ounces. That is significantly more. So, how much velocity, if any, will we lose, and will it be enough to matter? The second question is, with 16 pellets instead of 9, are we going to get a pattern that's about the same size, just more pellets in that area, so better hit probability, or will it do the same thing that the double-aught ammunition did, which was just give us a bigger pattern? Let's see if we can put both of those things to the test, and we'll start with some chronograph analysis. I have the chronograph set up at 5 yards. Typically I shoot from 7, but with a shotgun and multiple projectile rounds, 5 is better for the health of the chronograph. And I'm loaded with Remington Green and Yellow Box 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck 9 pellet. 1072, 1190, 1143, 1116, 1125, and 1136. Now that first reading, I'm going to tell you that was a malfunction of the chronograph, so we'll throw that out. But now let's see how those compare to the number 1 buck. And now our Remington Green and Yellow Box 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch number 1 buck 16 pellet. 1127, 1121, 1122, 1139, and 1118. Now let's go crunch the numbers. So for those who fast forwarded to the part where I'm standing here next to the chart, what we did was we chronographed Remington 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck versus Remington 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch number 1 buck, and here's the results we got. And of course these results come with the normal caveats that chronographs don't always agree with each other, and certain environmental factors like elevation and ambient temperature can affect chronograph results. But what I got with the number 1 buck was a mean velocity of 1,125, with the double-aught 1,142. That's 17 feet per second more. That's within the variation of one round to the next, not enough difference to make a difference. So in terms of velocity, we're not giving away any power when we go to the number 1 buck. But what about the pattern we're going to get with it? Let's put that to the test. For this comparison, I'll use the shoot and see targets, and I'm going to shoot from 40 yards with my Mossberg 500, and we'll start with the double-aught buck. And with my first shot, I got 1 on the shoot and see and 3 others on the target, and I've marked it 1 and 3. So I'll paste up these shot holes, try another shot. Now with the second shot, I have 4 impacts on the shoot and see and 3 on the silhouette. So that's significantly better. We've written down those results. Now maybe I was off with the first shot, and sometimes buckshot can be a little inconsistent. That's why we always fire more than 1 shot. So I'll paste up these shot holes and try 1 more shot with our double-aught. So with my third shot, I have 1 impact on the shoot and see and then 4 in the rest of the silhouette. So now I'll put up a new target, go back 40 yards, shoot with the number 1 buck, and see if we can improve on these numbers. So with my first shot with number 1 buck, I have 5 on the shoot and see and 2 on the rest of the target. I'll paste up these shot holes, we'll try another shot. With my second shot from 40 yards, I have 3 in the shoot and see and 3 in the rest of the target. So we'll paste up these shot holes, try 1 more shot. So with the third shot with the number 1 buck, I have 2 in the shoot and see and then 5 in the rest of the target. So when compared to double-aught buck 9 pellet, when I'm shooting from 40 yards, is my number 1 buck with the 16 pellet really putting more hits on target? I'm going to say marginally. But what about the effectiveness of these rounds? Remember, they're 30 caliber pellets, not 33, so they're going to be a little smaller and a little lighter. Are they going to be as effective on the intended target? Let's see if we can put that to the test. To test the effectiveness of our ammunition, we're going to use the meat target. Now, for those who haven't seen it before, the meat target is leather couch skin, followed by pork steak pectorals, pork ribs, a bag of oranges to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of lab coat on the front, 4 layers of lab coat on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. And I've got my Mossberg 500 loaded with our double-aught buck 9 pellet, and I'll shoot the meat target from 30 yards, and let's see what kind of damage I can do. Well, I've got the meat target taken apart. The ribs on the front of the target just have 33 caliber holes in them where projectiles hit ribs, broke them. We have moderate damage to our orange lung tissue, and all of our projectiles were stopped by the lab coat on the back of the target. Now let's take a close-up look at some of those projectiles. And here's 3 of our projectiles. The others fell into the snow and I couldn't find them. And you can see that they're deformed just a little bit. Now I have a new meat target set up, and I've got the shotgun loaded with the number 1 buck. We'll shoot this from 30 yards and see how it compares. Well, I've got the meat target taken apart. The ribs on the front of the target have 30 caliber holes in them where projectiles hit ribs, broke them, but didn't shatter them quite as much as the double-aught pellets did. We see moderate damage to our orange lung tissue. And all of the projectiles were stopped either by the lab coat on the back of the target or the first layer of fleece. Now, an interesting thing is, although I say that the projectiles that hit ribs didn't break them as much, when I look at the overall damage to this meat target as compared to the other one, this one does appear to have more damage because I fired the same number of rounds, but because there were more pellets in this shell, we saw more hits, therefore more damage. We also see that in terms of penetration, it looks like our 30 caliber number 1 buck pellets penetrated just as much as our 33 caliber double-aught pellets. Now, let's take a look at some of these number 1 pellets. And again, we see just a little bit of deformation. Now, one thing to add. I know that shooting the paper target and counting the shot holes can become very tedious. But a presentation like this one is not intended for entertainment. It's just intended for information, and I think it's good information. So with that, what are the takeaways from this? Well, on previous occasions, we've compared double-aught buck to number 4, and of course with number 4 buckshot, get a lot more pellets, a lot more impacts on target. But we've shown that at distance, those smaller pellets can be significantly less effective. Today we see that going from double-aught buck to the number 1 buckshot, in terms of its effectiveness on target, it looks pretty close. As far as penetration, seemed to be equal, maybe even a little bit more. And depending on what you're shooting, the distance at which you're shooting it, and which gun you're using, you may very well find that you get significantly more impacts on target with number 1 than you do with double-aught. I know that I've used number 1 buckshot for deer hunting on several occasions, and it was very effective. So, is number 1 buck the right ammo for me? I'm going to say yes. Is it the right ammo for you? You be the judge. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the double-aught versus number 1 buckshot video.